ComScore put out this research about 2 weeks ago. They found that 14% of mobile users in the US, it's just US data, 14% of mobile users, and I think that means all mobile users, that doesn't mean necessarily smartphone users, access maps on their device in April. So they believe that means that 34 million people in the US access maps on their phone in April. And if you assume that it's a worldwide phenomenon, then I would guess that number is probably 2x that worldwide. So you've got somewhere around 70 or 80 million people now accessing maps on their phone every month. And so that's a big market, right? So now, I'm just trying to piece together a lot of things that are coming together in my mind as sort of investable ideas. So you have the maps and other devices pumping data into the cloud, and now you have 80 million people worldwide doing that on a regular basis. And so all of a sudden, there's a massive amount of data that is starting to be generated. I want to give you a sense of some of the magnitude here. 2 weeks ago-ish, Harry, who's one of the lead devs at Foursquare, tweeted that they had over 1 million check-ins that day. So Foursquare's active user base is about 800,000 active users. So maybe, I don't know, 100 to 200,000 of them might be active in any one day. If they're getting 1 million check-ins, that means they're getting between 5 and 10 check-ins per user, per active user. So now we're starting to see, imagine if 80 million people around the world, those 80 million people using maps, were actually publishing specific venue check-in type data. This number would be much, much larger. And I think it will be in the not too distant future. This chart gives you a sense of the uptake of Foursquare. They never actually published this before. I asked Dennis if I could publish this. This is an internal chart that shows the total number of accounts. It's 2.12 million, I think, yesterday or the day before, July 18th. And then the red chart is the number of net signups they get every day. And what you see here is that this is your classic hockey stick. The slope of this curve is starting to get steeper and steeper and steeper, and you actually see that. The red line is the incremental new signups every day. And it's event-driven, like all of these services are, but you see that the trend is very much in the direction of 20,000 new users a day. And so that's just one service. That's just Foursquare. There's a neat little app called Social Grate. And the reason I want to talk about this is that Social Grate is aggregating this kind of data from multiple services. Twitter, Foursquare, Graffiti Geo, Brightcake, Gowalla. Obviously, that list could go on and on and on and on. So now you start to aggregate all of that data. And if you could start getting this data off of things like Google Maps, then I think you would start to see lots more information. So there's two, I think, big issues that I wanted to end with that, in my mind, are still somewhat unsolved problems in this market space. And the first one is privacy. And the issue here is that when you're starting to reveal your specific location, it's very important that you have control over that. That you can decide who gets access to that information and who doesn't. That you can be the one who permissions third-party apps and other people to publish that information. And it's not like there haven't been Other companies that have paved the way here, I think companies like Facebook in particular, have had a number of challenges, I guess I would say, around this area of privacy, and I think that entrepreneurs who are working in this space can look at the things that they've done, what's not worked, and what's backfired on them, and there are a lot of lessons there. But I do think that these large social services like Twitter and Facebook and Google and Yahoo and Microsoft may not be that capable of building private location-based services because their social graphs are not tuned for this kind of activity, and that when people start thinking about revealing their data, they want to start day one with a service that allows them to define exactly the terms under which their data is going to get shared. And so I think that actually benefits startups and the entrepreneurs in this sector more than the big companies, because the big companies have this challenge of scale, which is how can I sort of roll back a lot of the, how do I undo a lot of the permissions that I've already granted? I guess a good example of that would be Facebook. You know, if Facebook would allow somebody to check in, if somebody's got 1,000 friends on Facebook, they probably don't want all 1,000 of those people to see that they're, you know, having beers with their friends. So that's why I think that the emerging new companies in this sector are in some ways better positioned than the big companies. But privacy will continue to be a challenge, and I think that the companies that do the best job in managing the users' privacy, keeping the users in control, letting them be comfortable that their data is being used in ways that they want it to be used, will be the companies that ultimately are the most successful in this sector. The second issue is how you turn these businesses into, how you turn these services into businesses, how you generate revenues and make money. And there I think it's a lot less complicated of an issue, honestly. I think that knowing where somebody is in real time right now, particularly if you have some context around that, is incredibly valuable marketing opportunity. And I think everybody has sort of always realized that this is the holy grail for a local merchant. If they could know that one of their customers was either nearby or actually in their place of business, and they could make them an offer or give them a coupon or somehow incent a transaction, they would be highly incented to do so. And so I think that the revenue models around a lot of these hyper-local geo-type businesses are fairly straightforward. It doesn't mean that it won't take a lot of technology and a lot of sales and marketing effort to get the local merchants using these platforms. And I also think that there will likely be resellers and intermediaries who aggregate up value from these services and take them into the local marketplaces. So all that has to develop, but I'm not particularly worried about how you make money with these services, because I think that those problems sort of actually pale in my mind compared to some of the challenges around privacy and incenting user behavior and creating value for people for actually sharing this kind of information. So that's about 20 minutes, and so I'm going to turn this wide open for questions. I'll take questions on anything you want to talk about, but it might be good to try to keep it to some of the themes I talked about, because I'm going to come back up on stage in an hour or two with John Patel, and we're going to do a fireside chat or whatever you want to call it. So there's going to be another opportunity to ask John and I questions. So